Okay, so in the last segment, we were talking about the idea that sales reps can effectively invent their own price. And what a sales rep wants you to do is to give them a bare ass minimum, and they're going to move up from there. What you want to be able to do is know what a reasonable price is, and if they don't offer that to you, you walk away. You don't counter with them. You just say, too much. No, that's too much. I'll go do business with somebody else. And in dentistry, I'll buy my dental supplies from somebody else, or I'll get the renovation done on my practice by somebody else. So in the last segment, we were talking about some young dentists who've been out for a few years and, they feel like they're not getting ahead. And if they were only the boss of their own clinic, they would be so much more successful. So what they do is they go to what? They go to a commercial developer who's making a strip mall someplace, because those commercial developers buy mailing lists from the dental associations to find out the names of the young grads. And they send them mailers and say, this wonderful mall is being built here, and you can have a dental clinic there. In other words, they're target marketing. But these young dentists do give them a call. Now, see, the thing is, if you don't know how to negotiate with a commercial realtor, then you could be paying a lot more for rent, and you're locked into that rent for 5 years. And by the way, what you're renting is a blank box. It's cement floor and drywall and a roof with no suspended ceiling. You're going to have to do something called leasehold improvements. Rent is called a lease, and you have to take the leaseholds, that's what you're holding on to, and you have to improve them. Leasehold improvements. Get it? When you do leasehold improvements, I can tell you, you can get so taken to the cleaners if you don't know how much it costs to do these renovations. So let me give you an example. I didn't build a practice from scratch. I found a practice where the dentist was ready to retire. And he'd been practicing for quite a number of years, and he kind of let the practice go a little bit because he wasn't motivated to keep working. As a matter of fact, he'd had a number of problems with his back, and he'd had several back operations. So the practice had kind of declined, so it really wasn't worth that much, but it was in one of the fastest growing municipalities in the country with young families, and I'm really good with kids. So this was like the perfect demographic. Why? Because from an accounting point of view, I counted the statistics. I found out where the young families were, and this was the best place in the country to go to. And then I found a practice in the best demographic I could find. And this particular practice just needed someone to do some counting. Counting what? Counting on the fact that nobody else in this area was working evenings or Saturdays. So it wasn't enough to find the best demographic or the best community in the country. It wasn't enough to figure out that the demographic had lots of young families with young kids, which is what I was particularly good at. And by the way, if you're doing your treatment for the young kids, then the parents are coming there too. In other words, you get the whole family. It's why we're called family practitioners. So this was a great place to build a practice. But not only that, nobody in the trading area was working evenings, and nobody was working evenings. So I did, which meant that I had a competitive advantage. So people that couldn't get time off work, they had to work from like 8 to 5, they found out, here's a doctor that's going to work from like till 8 o'clock at night. And I started getting patients that way. And here's a doctor that's going to work on Saturdays, which is so they can see my kids, because parents don't want their kids to miss school because they think if they miss a finger painting class that their whole academic and education, is going to go down the toilet. Well, that's crazy, but that's the way parents think. So anyway, being open on Saturdays is a great way for the kids to come in and the parents come in with the kids. Get it? That's called target marketing. So I built a practice, and when I got the practice, it had 300 patients, and in a period of not too many years, I built it up to 7,000 patients. And then I started bringing on other doctors to work with me. That's what an associate is. But the point of the matter is this. When I bought the practice, it needed quite a bit of renovation work because it really wasn't too terribly attractive, and it wasn't big enough. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to do an expansion. So I talked to some of my patients that are tradesmen, carpenters, electricians, painters, drywallers, and I said, if you look at this practice here, if I was to annex off some office space in the offices beside where my clinic is, what do you think it would cost me to do the construction work, do the demolition work, do the stippling on the ceilings, do the drywalling, do the carpeting, all of these things. And I started to get an idea as to how much it would be. Now, you have to understand, before I went to school, I had a different career when I was younger. I used to own a contracting company. I used to do renovations. I had over 100 employees when I was 23 years old. So I had a really good background in business. But the point of the matter is, when the sales rep from the dental supply company said, "Oh, and doctor, we'll look after all those renovations for you," because I just casually mentioned I was going to be doing some expansion. I went, "Gee, Dale, that's awfully convenient." And I just played in with it because I was wondering where it was going to go. Because why would people that sell you anesthetic or sell you filling material or sell you polyvinyl siloxane, why would they know anything about renovations? Well, the reason they know stuff about renovations is because they hire subtrades to do the work for them because they make a great buck at it. You know why? Because they make up the fee, like the Mexican beach salesman that said $30 for a hat. Except you guys don't know how much it costs for renovations because you've never worked in the field, but I had. And I put in time, energy, emotion, and effort to look at the resources out there, which are the tradespeople. That took time. That took energy. That took effort. And yeah, I had to pour into this, emotionally because I was connecting with people. And I had to get them to give me like their bare ass minimums, sort of prices because nobody wants to pay a fortune. So anyway, the point of the matter is I had a really good idea how much it was going to cost to do this renovation. Well, guess what my sales rep said? My sales rep said, "Oh, and doctor, we can do this renovation for you." And he drew some plans out, which were pretty sketchy. And he says, "And it'll take about 2 or 3 weeks." And I'm going, 2 or 3 weeks? It's not going to take anywhere close to that. Why do they want to take 2 or 3 weeks? Maybe they want to take 2 or 3 weeks to give them an excuse to charge me a lot more money. Because let's face it, if something takes 5 minutes, it shouldn't cost as much as something that takes 5 days. So they're saying it's going to take 2 or 3 weeks. And I'm going, no, this will take about 3 days. But I just went along with it. I said, "Oh, okay, Dale, like 2 or 3 weeks. Wow, won't that be expensive? I'll have to shut down the practice." He goes, "Oh, no, doctor, you just go on vacation. And when you come back, we'll have everything finished. It'll be just great." "Gee, Dale, thanks. You're my new best friend," I said. "By the way, Dale, how much will this cost me?" And he goes, "Oh, about $70,000 or $80,000. And I said, "Gee, Dale, that sounds like quite a bit." And he says, "Oh, doctor, that's because you don't understand these things. You better get used to it. Running your own practice is expensive." And this was his favorite subliminal mind, dumbing, phrase that he would use. This was his best tool at trying to condition me to paying more for stuff. He kept saying, "Oh, doctor," and he'd call me doctor. He's 20 years older than me. "Oh, doctor, you better get used to it." And the translation is, don't question how much it costs because you just don't know because you're young and you're wet behind the ears and you're naive or maybe you're stupid, but don't question it. That's what the manipulative sales technique meant. And I knew that because I'd been in sales before, but I just played dumb. "Oh, okay, I'll just get used to that idea, Dale. What, $70,000 or $80,000? He goes, "Yep." See, I just gave him my BAM. I just said to the Mexican beach vendor, "I'll pay $15 for this hat." I just agreed to $70,000 to $80,000. By the way, I did the renovations myself. I brought in the subtrades. They were all patients of mine. I bought them pizza and beer. They still charge me, but a reasonable amount. It cost me $14,000. When you guys are getting your renovations done, you're paying hundreds of thousands of dollars. Don't do that. Don't do that. And here's another example. We have staff retreats in my practice. We go away for a week every year, and one of the things that the staff really likes to do is we rent a houseboat, which is like a floating hotel, and we go on this lake system in British Columbia, and this lake system has 1,400 kilometers of beach. It's just the most amazing. It's 4 different arms, okay? So it's called the Shuswap Lake System. But anyway, they've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of houseboats from different companies, and you rent one, you go out for a week. And we get away from everything. We get away from the phones, we get away from the faxes, we get away from the emails, we get away from emergencies, we get away from everything so that we can relax and remind ourselves that we're good people, we like each other. And what happened because we've done this about 8 times. One time when we we docked our houseboat on the beach, and just as dusk was coming, because every houseboat, you're not allowed to stay in the water, you have to, dock, this other houseboat docked right beside us. And it was dark, and we didn't know who they were. But the next morning, I come out at 7 o'clock, and here's this guy on a beach. And he's sitting in a lawn chair, and he's drinking a cup of coffee, and he waves to me, and I wave back to him, and then I grab my coffee, and I go sit with him. And as we're talking, I find out he's a cabinet maker. And he finds out I'm a dentist. And he goes, wow, we love doing work for dentists. And I said, yeah, I bet you do, because I hear that dentists are paying like $65,000 to $75,000 just for the cabinetry. Like, seriously, Bill, where do you guys get off charging $65,000 to $75,000 for cabinetry? And Bill looked at me and he winked. He says, because you guys will pay it.